A promising game ends up turning into, I wouldn't call it disaster, but a certainly disappointing end as Colorado falls in the shootout to Calgary 3-2. The Flames keep their slim playoff hopes alive with a comeback victory. Again, results right now don't matter for the Avalanche, so the point really doesn't matter. There are a couple of things, though, in this game that you look at and you go, let's try and make sure that those things get shored up before the playoffs roll around. And I think that the main issue right now is when you got your foot on an opponent's neck, step down. And right now, the Avs are kind of letting up pressure. Maybe that's the case of Game 74 in a long slog of a regular season, Mark Springer. But that's something that you would hope does not translate when April 19th rolls around.
Yeah, they get outshot 11-5 in the third period after outshooting him 10-6 in the first, 11-6 in the second. Man, I thought that was going to be a win. You know, I had all my talking points ready, all the things I wanted to say that were in more of a positive light about this game. But there was one thing, even when the Avs were up 2-0 in this game. Okay, let me start here. Once again, I don't, and I said this after the St. Louis game, even though they played pretty well in that game, I do not like these lines. I do not like these top two lines. It's as simple to me as this. Nichushkin back on line one and Lehkonen back down to line two. It's just too small. Top line is too small. Hell, I was fine with the original lines when everything, post trade deadline, Natchez, Lehkonen, McKinnon. But Raj, I get it. Maybe Natchez is a little redundant to McKinnon. Maybe it makes more sense to have him down on the second line. There's no size. There's no size on that top line. I would get Val Nichushkin up there. You can't put Brock Nelson up there because he needs to be at second line center where he belongs. So I don't know what they're doing. I usually don't criticize Jared Bednar because usually he doesn't do anything that makes me, question any of his decisions. But I do not understand moving Nichushkin down to line two, following their best performance of the season against the Los Angeles Kings, the most complete game they played, start to finish, a 4-0 win. Why are we shaking up the lines after that performance? And they are now 0-1-1, both at home in those two games. This makes no sense to me. For
Yeah,
the life of me, can't figure it out.
both at home, and both of those wins were leads that you had, right? You had opportunities to hold on to those hockey games. I find myself agreeing with you that those experiments, I think they're not working, right? So if you take that data into the playoffs, I don't know if that's what you want to do. It didn't work in the third period when Calgary heavily, or I wouldn't even say the third period, the second half of the game. So like the 10-minute mark of that second period when Calgary really started ramping up the physical nature of the hockey game. Um, it hasn't worked against two teams that have wanted to try and hit you out of the building. And you do have the ability to have size on all three lines. That's kind of what Chris McFarland went out and did at the trade deadline. And now, I think, as you do very astutely point out, you kind of place all those eggs into a basket. And while you are multiple, right, like you have a very speedy, skilled, fast, puck possession oriented first line, you have a try to play through us type of 6'3", 6'4", 220 second line. I wonder if that's the best use of the size. And I think you are right, Spring. Right now, it's not. I would like to see them go back to the original pairings, put Nichushkin alongside Nathan McKinnon, handcuff him to Nate, and I think that's probably the better way to go because when Calgary did ramp up the physical activity today and the whistles went away, and as much as you want to complain about the whistles going away, get ready for playoff hockey because that's playoff hockey officiating right there. When that happens, the Avs have a lineup that they've proven they can play against teams that want to goon it up. They can win against teams that want to goon it up with these new additions to the roster. For some reason, as we're tinkering going into the postseason, this combination doesn't work.
No, and you're right. The size that they have, utilize it. You spread it out lines 1 through 3. Now, I don't care if it's Lekanen or Drouin on line 1. Pick your poison. I suppose go with Drouin because of the chemistry he has with Nate. I mean, shoot, they have a great sequence in this game where Drouin leaves another great drop pass for McKinnon, and McKinnon lays a great shot on net. Good save by Dan Vladar. That's another thing about this game. They start Dan Vladar. They started Dustin Wolf the other night in their overtime loss in Edmonton. You didn't even have to see Dustin Wolf. He's the goaltender that kind of scares me, the 23-year-old kid, one of, if not maybe the best young goaltender in the game. You got Dan Vladar tonight. And it just wasn't dangerous enough in the third period, but it was solid throughout. It was. And I thought this was a win. I thought that this was signed, sealed, delivered, and over. Maybe it is. Maybe there is something to be said right now about the fact that the Avs are essentially playing for nothing. And you can rest on your heels a little bit in a third period when hey, we can get these 2 points. We can come keep our foot on the gas and put our feet on their throat and just really take it to these guys. For what? To still end up the 3 seed in the Central and still have the inevitable matchup with the Dallas Stars. We see this with the Avs. We see this with the Nuggets. When these players know that there is truly nothing to play for, they do not give it 100%. And quite honestly, can you fault them? Because they have given so much this season. They have overcome stretches where they haven't looked good, and they have proved us wrong, and they have played with that chip on their shoulder. But, those were moments where they had something to prove. And right now, the only thing that there is for them to prove is that they can stay hot going into a matchup that they know they're destined for.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to back into the playoffs. So, I wouldn't put an overtime or a shootout loss in the category of backing in. Like, I think Colorado played a good enough hockey game most nights to come away with 2 points in this one. Was it good enough to guarantee 2 points? Obviously, no. But I thought they were fine. I didn't think they played a bad game. I thought they dominated half of it, and I thought they were marginally outplayed in the second half, largely outplayed in the third period. At least we got a really freaking entertaining overtime. That was a delight to watch back and forth hockey. You have a puck that just sits on the goal line that you had an opportunity for. Mackenzie Weegar rips one off the post for Calgary on the opposite side. So you did have chances to win this thing. I don't think this was a bad hockey game for the Avs. I thought it was a sleepy finish. And as a result, you're playing against a team that, like, if Calgary doesn't get 2 points tonight, they're dead. And you might be able to make the argument that they're still kind of dead right now. They have to go and hunt down the hottest team in the National Hockey League right now, which is the St. Louis Blues, having won 9 straight. St. Louis has 87 points. Calgary just got their 83rd and 84th on the season, if I'm correct, with those updated points. Either that or their 81st and 82nd. Did they have 35 wins coming into tonight or 34?
I think that no, this was they are now at 82 points. Those standings are updated. So the Flames leave tonight with 82 points.
Yeah, you have to make up 5 points. Yeah, you got 2 games in hand on St. Louis, but I don't think they're cooling down anytime soon. Calgary, they're alive, but those playoff hopes are slim. So you are, again, there's a lot of the human element to this spring that you pointed out. You know where you're going. You're going to Dallas. And Calgary is in the mindset of, oh fuck, if we don't get this done, our season's over. Like if you get 1 point tonight, you could go, yep, see ya, pack up the bags, let's go play some golf in British Columbia.
That's exactly what this was. The Flames had everything to play for tonight, and the Avs really didn't have much to play for. Look, the Avs had won 7 straight over Calgary. I thought, man, as the third period started, it was going to be 8, and this was, and I don't think Calgary is a true playoff team, but sometimes weaker teams can make it as an 8 seed. But they were desperate. They were the desperate team in the third period. Look, this Adam Klapka dude, who scores the game tying goal. Well,
Yeah,
bef-
Frankenstein's monster. I've never seen that guy in my life. He's the size of that dude's like Matt Rempe.
he's gigantic. He is a big old forward, and you know what they do? They're down 2-0, and they just start mucking it up. And maybe even it goes back to the end of the second period where Cale Makar lays that great reverse hit on Blake Coleman. And look, it's a punk move by Blake Coleman to go rough up and lay it's essentially interference. It's an away from the play hit that Coleman lays on Cale Makar. I don't like it. It's illegal, but guess what? If you're Calgary, your season's on the line. You just got embarrassed by Cale Makar. Go try to send a message. Okay, he did that. There's a tone set for them going into the third period. They kill off that power play that Colorado has to start the third period. And then several minutes into the third, there's a net front scrum in front of Scott Wedgwood. Adam Klapka is the ringleader of this thing. You know, he's a Matt Rempe. That's his job. That's what
He's
he's there to
6'8",
do.
240.
I did like Cale Makar throwing one of the Flames players down to the ice in that sequence, but look, it fires the Flames up, and now all of a sudden the Avs are a little they're not very composed. Lindgren's laying a cross check that maybe he shouldn't be laying, and it just kind of tumbles out of control. But the Flames set a tone with their season essentially on the line tonight, having lost 7 straight to this team. And look, I don't think that Nazem Kadri had a huge impact on this game at all. I mean, he's a -1. I don't think Jonathan Huberdeau has a big impact. He did have a shot on a turnover late in that third period that Wedgwood saves. And when Wedgwood makes that save, it's like, oh, there's another big Wedgie save. But look, Kadri and Huberdeau are veteran players. They are I don't know if composed is the right word, but when you have a Kadri and a Huberdeau and you got a fire lit underneath you in the third period and you have everything to play for and your opponent doesn't, this is what can happen.
I mean,
And the Avs lose.
I would have liked to have seen some sort of response on the Makar hit. That I was upset about. That was the one thing I was looking forward to in the third period was someone give a response to that. And Cale can fight his own battles. I get that. Like Cale was the aggressor, right? He throws the reverse check, and then Coleman comes over with a little bit of a scummy sucker punch to his face. They get the power play out of it. I would have liked to have seen whether it was a fight or a post whistle cross check to his ribs, something. I would have liked to have seen a response from a teammate on Blake Coleman. I He's a Stanley Cup winning veteran player. Maybe he's earned the right from other vets on the team, and like your bigger guys, your meatier guys on the team right now are vets. Maybe he's earned the right to be able to handle his own business, and he and Cale handled it. I would have liked to have seen something happen. Um, Maybe Bednar's talking to the team and going, "Hey, no one, don't drop the mitts. Like we can't afford to have someone break their hand 12 days or 15 days, whatever it is, before the postseason starts." Maybe that's part of it. I didn't love the fact that we didn't see anything in the third period. I didn't want to see anything cheap, but at least something, because that's the best player on planet Earth, or the second best player on planet Earth outside of Nathan McKinnon, and nothing was really done, and that did disappoint me.
I mean, who's it going to be? Josh Manson's out right now.
Eric Johnson,
Um,
Charlie Coyle, Brock Nelson,
mhm. Newer guys, newer guys. We haven't seen the new
Ryan
guys.
Lindgren.
Ryan Lindgren's another one. We haven't seen the newer guys really. You
Honestly,
know,
the one guy that would have done it, the one guy to do it is Nathan McKinnon. But
sure,
you
but
can't
you can't.
afford to have his right ring finger buckle back and snap on April 1. It can't happen.
Mm-hmm. Landeskog would be that guy. He was that guy a lot of the times when he was playing.
Yeah.
Eric Johnson, I talk about the scrum before the Lindgren cross check that I think Calgary, it was very clear. It's like, oh, the Coleman hit at the end of the second, and now they're scrumming it up in front of the net. Oh, it's kind of clear what they're trying to do. Eric Johnson was I liked his demeanor in that sequence. He wasn't taking any shit. He was clapping back at Adam Klapka. No pun intended on the use of the word clap. So Eric Johnson can do it, but yeah, the newer guys. Look, when you're not, when you haven't gone to war with this group over a number of years, I think maybe tonight is a little bit of a message that hey, now's the time to to send some messages back. Because I mean, what Charlie Coyle, Brock Nelson, Ryan Lindgren, you're some big dudes. You're Lindgren, especially a little
Yeah,
bit of
you're
a dirty
mean.
dude. It's time. It's time to really earn your stripes in that respect.
All right, Spring, it's been 15 minutes of the show. Let's call out the goddamn elephant in the room, the actual reason why the Colorado Avalanche lost today. And that's all you motherfuckers at Ball Arena with 13 minutes to go in a hockey game that you were up 2-0 in, starting the wave. What
Well,
are you
I don't like
doing?
that.
When are you idiots gonna learn? All you're doing right now is spitting in the gods or the hockey gods' faces. That is all you're doing. That it's your fault. It's not the Avs' fault. It's not the lineup's fault. It's not the fact that there wasn't goaltender interference called on Adam Klapka. It's not the fact that the Avs didn't step up and try and do something to Blake Coleman, or the fact that the puck didn't go 2 more inches in overtime up and over the goal line. It's all the people in the lower bowl who thought the hockey game was over 12 and a half minutes to go in a 2-0 game. Stop it with the goddamn wave.
Well, it goes to show you how seriously some of the fans took the game tonight. How can the players take the third period overly seriously when you're treating this like, the Avs are have you only do the wave in a situation like that in a game that means absolutely nothing. If a game means everything, you don't do that crap. You a 2-goal lead against, a formidable opponent in hockey is never safe.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable. I blame you. I blame all of you who decided to do the wave. It's your fault.
That sets a tone. It really does set a tone. So there you go. Here's another thing tonight. So Jimmy VC comes into this lineup, and actually before I get to
I don't need to
VC,
see that guy play hockey anymore for the Avs, man. He doesn't do anything for me.
well, unfortunately, Miles Wood hasn't played that well either, and I know Miles Wood is better than this, and he's
Well,
had a couple.
sorry, Spring. I don't mean to cut you off. They're both not going to play in the playoffs because Gabriel Landeskog will be
Well,
taking their spot.
and that's kind of exactly where I was going to get to. So, and on a side note with Jimmy VC, look, that dude's a fourth line player. Now he only plays 10 minutes. There was some mixing and matching going on, but by and large, Jared Bednar, even though VC, who is a fourth liner, he's your bottom of the barrel guy. We knew that that's what he was when he came over in the Lindgren trade. He should be playing on the fourth line. Well, Jared Bednar does not want to split up the Jack Drury, Logan O'Connor, and Parker Kelly line, which look maybe a little to blame for a couple things in the third period, but overall, I mean, OC's goal is great. The forecheck from Parker Kelly on that sequence is great. I think Jack Drury is the perfect fourth line center. I love that fourth line. That to me is a championship fourth line. Logan O'Connor is a championship level fourth line player. I think Parker Kelly has stepped up this season and has been more than the Avs could have asked for coming over from Ottawa. And I think Jack Drury was the perfect fourth line center acquisition. I love that. Is a when you look at Cogliano and Helm and players of that ilk. Now maybe they're not as experienced as those players, but those are championship fourth line players. It really starts with Logan O'Connor. And so the goal he scores is great. I thought overall the fourth line is good. Now VC is going to play primarily with Colton and Coyle on the third line tonight, even though he doesn't deserve that. But it's because Jared Bednar does not want to break that fourth lineup right now. He wants them to continue to play together because that will be your fourth line in the playoffs. And whether it's Jimmy VC, whether it's Miles Wood, I think that wing spot is merely a placeholder. It doesn't matter who it is. That's going to be Gabriel Landeskog playing a third line wing with Charlie Coyle and Ross Colton.
It's 100% going to happen, guys. You obviously saw the videos, whether it was from me, or from Jesse, or from the Avs, or from DMAC, whoever it was at Morning Skate today that you saw the video from on socials. Guys, Gabriel Landeskog's playing. No, like that thing is happening. He got full speed reps with the first power play unit today, and he was running net front, behind the net, retrieving pucks. He was taking a little bit of contact from Eric Johnson because he was not in a non-contact jersey. He is consistently practicing with this team. Yes, today is it's morning skate, and morning skate is a get your touches in, get your blood flow in, make sure that you're going over exactly what you want to do on special teams to execute that night. It's not a full practice, and Jared Bednar has said that they have like 3 actual practices remaining from now until the playoffs start, where it's like a day off and they're on the ice really drilling things. I assume Gabe's going to be part of those things. Does it mean he's going to go and play for the Eagles for a couple games? I don't know. But what I saw today and what I've seen over the past 3-4 weeks, and with the media ramp up and the Kiefer interview and the 5-part documentary series that's going on all about him, this dude's playing in game 1, and he's playing in game 2, and he's playing in game 3. The reason why I say that is because you see him on the ice consistently. And it wasn't whether or not Gabe could play on any given day. It was whether or not Gabe's knee would respond the next day, or the day after, or 3 days after, or a week after, right? That's the reason why Gabe wasn't around for all of these weeks, all of these months, and the better part of 3 years, because when he got on the ice, his knee would blow up. It was kind of like the Peter Forsberg thing where like his foot would just grow and shrink 3 sizes over the course of a game and the subsequent days after. Right now, because he's on the ice consistently, what that's telling me is his knee is responding, and this time has worked. Do I know that means it's going to be successful for the remainder of his career? No, but what I am confident in saying, Spring, that dude is in the lineup on April 19th, 100%. He's playing.
Yep. That's every indication. Why else would he be practicing as much as he has been, traveling with the team to Canada now? And and you know this better than I do. He was in a blue jersey today, Raj. The video you took, you were out there at Ball Arena for your show, the morning sprint. And then as were others, but Raj, the blue, he was not in a red is no contact, and he was in a blue. So you could lay your hands on Gabe Landeskog today. Is that correct?
That is correct, and EJ did. EJ gave him
Yep.
a few pushes net front and behind the net. We saw some contact. Was he getting laid out? No, like no one's. You're not trying to body up your teammate at morning skate, but he was getting leaned on by a big guy.
Oh, that's a gigantic step. I mean, we've seen a number of gigantic steps in the past couple weeks, and now he's wearing a blue sweater where he's. It's not like, oh, hey, play it nice with Gabe. Now, granted, everyone's going to mind their P's and Q's. No one's going to do anything stupid. Eric Johnson was kind of, I got a joking vibe from him in his comments after practice that, yeah, I laid a couple cross checks on Gabe, but that's just good razzing, and hey, and I'm sure he did let him feel it a couple times to remind him what it's or give him a taste of what it's going to be like to actually be back out there. But I mean, the fact that he's in a contact sweater today, it's even more of a sign. I mean, all of the signs are there, from the media blitz and the documentary to the speed we saw him playing at in those initial practices, to traveling to Canada, to now in a contact sweater operating on power play 1 in practice. It is happening, and it has to happen, because the only time it makes sense for him to debut, whether it's this season or even next season, is in the playoffs, because the fact that you have to keep him on LTIR, and you got to Vegas Golden Knight this thing. They're not intentionally doing it. They're doing it by a matter of circumstance. You have to play him. You have to re-debut him in the playoffs, which is a little weird. You'd rather him kind of get some reps under him in the regular season, but just the way it's played out, And the way they've had to manage their roster and their salary cap with him out means he has to come back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, there is a small chance for him to go play with the Eagles. Like there is an opportunity that if the timing works out, because you get 10 days or 6 games if you are a long-term injured reserve player that needs to go on a conditioning stint to the American Hockey League without having to pass waivers or anything like that. It's either 6 games or 10 days. And you have to time it perfectly, because if you go too early and you use up those 10 days from the day that, it's not like you get 10 days here, there, and everywhere. It's from the day you start. 10 days later is when that alarm clock goes off. And then the commissioner's office comes in and will deem it either you're good to go, you come off LTIR, or you're still injured, it's fine, like we're putting you back. So where you'd run into the issue is if you go too early and the commissioner's office goes, that's a guy who can play hockey, and you're in game 80, you're automatically not cap compliant. And you don't have any injured guys that you could do. You could throw Josh Manson on injured reserve, but you still wouldn't have enough money to make up the delta to get Gabe back in. Someone else would have to get hurt, and you can't just like magically poof somebody onto LTIR. You do have to prove it. And while we raise our Brian Windhorst fingers and we put on our Reynolds wrap hats about other teams that do this, the Nikita Kucherovs, the Mark Stones. It is a loophole that you try to exploit, but teams aren't saying, I'm sick, this guy goes on LTIR. You do have to prove these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if anyone has to prove, or for that matter, even doesn't have to prove, it's a man who's been out for almost 3 years now. So, yeah, this is just it's just been what it's been, and the timing though is great. It really is, because it would be there were either two ways that the timing would be good, and honestly, this is even better. This is even better
Oh, sorry,
because
Spring. My numbers are wrong. I apologize. Dan Care Bear, you do have that right. I'm sorry. It is 6 days or 3 games, not 6 games or 10 days. My apologies. 3 games, 6 days. So it's an even shorter window.
sure, okay. Ideally you'd want him back early in the season or in the playoffs. Now, the benefit of this is that you get, if he doesn't look right, if he's not right, then he has to make the tough call of whether or not his $7 million is worth it, for the Avs cap. Like, is this something you want to do to the team? If you are not playing at anywhere close to a $7 million level, if he were to have come back, earlier this season or in the early portion of the season, and he's not that player, you're stuck with that $7 million the rest of the year. Unless he retires. I guess unless he would have retired like in November or
He
whatever.
won't
But
he won't retire ever. No matter what happens, that dude's not retiring. The retirement will be him going on long-term injured reserve for the rest of his career.
sure, a
Because if
la a
you retire,
Carey Price or something
yeah,
like that.
because if you retire, he's got what, 5 years remaining on that deal. He's then forfeiting $35 million. He ain't doing that.
Okay, so he won't retire.
Yes, quote. It's exactly what it is. It's air quotes, 100%.
Okay, okay, but yeah, no, it's good. Either way, they're not Vegas Golden Knighting this thing. They needed the flexibility with the uncertainty of what that $7 million was going to be. I want to see it in the playoffs. I do, and I think that third line wing spot, it is open for him. Like if this was a dinner table and we had the nameplates out, that Landeskog third line wing, it is sitting there with his name on it.
Yeah, he's got to be in the lineup, man. I mean, he looks smooth, he looks powerful. It's going to be a crazy change, and I've been having conversations. I do want to pick your brain on this. Does it matter what game he comes back in? Does it
No,
matter if it's I see? I agree. I was thinking for a little while. I thought I was big braining it. Like, hey, let's wait until game 3 so you really get that big energy boost when he comes in at home. The energy boost is going to be through the roof whether he plays in games 1 or 2 or he debuts in game 3. Like there's no extra level of decibel that you can get to by holding him out for 2 games on the road.
No, it's still the home debut. It's still the first time that the fans would see him in person. It changes nothing, whether it's his first game back or his third game back. And at this rate, it would likely be his third game back. I want him playing game one in Dallas because there's going to be a rust factor, whether it's the first shift, the first handful of shifts, the first game overall, perhaps. Look, if Gabe Landeskog is rusty as all hell in game one in Dallas and that costs him a little bit, fine. Guess what? You knocked one off. You got that game out of the way. And I need that to happen as early as possible, which would be game one. I don't want that happening in game three when this could be a 1-1 series. This could be Avs trailing 0-2. Hell, the Avs could be up 2-0, but Landeskog's rusty in his debut at home, and they lose, and now it's a 2-1 series. No, I need that. I need any rust that is knocked off or that needs to be knocked off to happen as soon as possible, which means game one of the Dallas series.
I completely agree with you, Spring. Bleed Orange 7 asks, hey, question, can teams add to the roster for the playoffs, or is that not allowed? You technically can, and what they're referred to in the National Hockey League, if you've heard this term, they're referred to as black aces. So if you own the rights to those players, and they were not a college hockey free agent type of guy, you can call them up to your team. And typically black aces end up acting as reserves. They travel with the team, they'll practice with the team. God forbid a bunch of guys get hurt, that they can then be elevated to the active roster. Most black aces in this league don't find their way onto playoff ice. It is just it's kind of like the rosters expanding in Major League Baseball when you get to the postseason. You can't add players that you didn't have prior to the roster freezes after the trade deadline. So that's the only issue there. You can technically add, but you're not really adding players of value.
What type of players are we talking about outside of college free agents, like Ilya Nabokov in the KHL or something like that? Not that that would happen, but I'm just curious, like which type of players are these even?
I don't. Yeah, I don't believe that Ilya Nabokov would be available to you because he hasn't signed an entry level contract. If he were to come over, um, oh wait, no, because Kovalenko did. I wonder if European Pro is a little bit different.
Okay.
Um,
I mean, what type of
Let me
player
double
would
check that.
what type of player would exist that the Avs have rights to that could debut in the playoffs?
I mean,
many years.
like any one of your American Hockey League players that you've had
Okay.
that come over, like
The only
Caleb.
time, the only time that a player like that, and it would impact an NHL team at a level that is of any significance. Well, I mean, the example with the Avalanche would just be when Cale Makar, when UMass got eliminated from the Frozen Four, and or what? Did they even make the Frozen Four? I don't know. With the college hockey tournament, and UMass gets eliminated, and boom, here comes Cale Makar.
I think didn't Massachusetts like win the national championship that
Did they
year?
win the national championship?
They
I
were
don't
in the
even remember.
they may have been in the Frozen Four or won the title. They were deep that year, deep.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it was the Frozen Four, but either way, the Avs don't have a player like that in the pike. So, I mean, they don't need a goaltender. They don't need Ilya Nabokov. Scott Wedgwood had another very good game. And quite honestly, I thought he played well in the shootout. Sharon Govich's goal, it goes a little backwards. I don't like that. I called a recent opposing player out for going backwards. I think it was a Canadiens player. I think it was Nick Suzuki. Wedgwood was better in the shootout than Blackwood's looked. They should do this, Raj, in regular season games that they actually really want to win, because let's be honest, they didn't really care about winning this game tonight because their destiny is already certain. If Mackenzie Blackwood is the starting goaltender and the Avs go to the shootout, pull him and put Scott Wedgwood in. That's my new strategy going forward in regular season shootouts. They don't need Nabokov. They got the woodshed. I don't know what they could possibly. Taylor McCarr. Taylor McCarr is, by all accounts, not going, and they don't need Taylor McCarr. They have a fourth line that they already like, and that's what Taylor McCarr would be
I mean,
when
he
he comes up.
is.
He's going to be a fourth liner to start at least.
I mean, if he gets there, you guys have to remember, like Taylor McCarr is a 24-year-old college senior grad transfer to the University of Maine, and he was good for Maine, and Maine was a surprising team this year. Um, just because his last name is McCarr doesn't mean he makes the team. Like Kale's brother is on a amateur tryout contract essentially with the Colorado Eagles for the rest of the season. He'll be at training camp and he'll be at dev camp and stuff like that. He is a very 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 long shot to make this team next year.
I think he plays at some point for the Avs. You look at who they had to trot out to start this season, where Lee Steinberg, Matt Steinberg, That's right. TJ Tynan was playing. So at some point, Taylor McCarr, I think, gets a fourth line look with the Avs. But it appears it'll be next season at the earliest. I don't know. He seems like he's developed well. Like it seemed what did the Avs spend on him? Like a 6th or 7th round pick?
He was a 7th rounder.
And he was not a very heralded prospect. It almost felt like the type of draft pick where they were just like doing their brother a solid. But then lo and behold, Taylor, develops a little at UMass and then transfers to Maine and had himself a decent little season at Maine. And Maine was probably a little better than expected this year. So I mean, maybe Taylor McCarr is just a late bloomer, whereas his brother was the earliest bloomer physically.
I mean, it wasn't even. I mean, you could actually make the argument that like Kale was a late bloomer too. Like
sure.
playing in the Alberta League is, especially when Kale was coming up, playing in the Alberta League was looked at as like, you're a prospect. You found the guy in the AJHL. Like, what are we talking about? He's a Brooks Bandit. That's what that league for a very long time was looked at. It was looked at as a what do you do? You're playing minor junior in Canada, and then Kale turned it around, and you realize that you could find good players in the Alberta League. You could find good players in the British Columbia League, in the BCHL. You found guys like Alex Newhook who played in the BCHL, and among others that are currently in the league right now. You also forget that like Kale spent 2 full seasons at Massachusetts and was a top 5 pick, and many teams looked at him going, he should have been the number 1 overall, and we even knew it before he hit the NHL. We just weren't in a position to take that player. Kale was a late bloomer.
Kale was a late bloomer. You're right. I just look at it from the perspective of from his very first NHL game, he was a Hall of Famer. Like his debut.
Yeah, I'll never forget being in the box that night watching that happen next to you. That was unlike anything I've ever seen. Spring, the Black Aces, essentially it's contracted NHL players that either have 1 or 2A contracts. What the reason why you can do it is because like the roster limit gets lifted. So to answer your question in a very succinct way, are there impact players that you would call up in this Black Ace situation? No.
Mm-hmm. And they don't need it, someone in the chat mentioned Ivan and Prishapov. Can't remember, is it Ivan Prishapov?
I mean, Ivan would be a player that I could see if, God forbid, 4 injuries happened. I could see Ivan stepping in and playing 7 or 8 minutes and me being okay with it. He proved to me
I like Ivan.
He can play 8 minutes a game for me if you really need him.
I'd rather have Ivan. I'd maybe rather have Ivan play than Jimmy VC, but barring injury, as I said, their fourth line is set. It is Jack Drury centering Logan O'Connor and Parker Kelly. And I really like that fourth line. I'm a big fan of that fourth line. There's no need for There's no break in case of oh God, what are we gonna do at fourth line wing? No, it's set. It's all set. The only question right now is actually third line wing, and we believe that that is bookmarked, earmarked for Gabe
Talk about a
Landeskog.
black
Hey, here's a
ace.
question. What was that?
I said, talk about a black ace. It's the greatest black
Yeah,
ace in the history of
that's
the
your
league.
black ace. Your black ace is Gabe Landeskog. Also, the black ace is cool as hell name. That just sounds so cool. The
That should have been the
black
Vegas
aces.
Black Aces instead of the Golden Knights.
Here's a question for you, Raj. When Josh Manson is back,
Mm.
has Eric Johnson has he earned a spot?
Yes. Yeah. He's not he hasn't been bad enough or inconsistent enough to say that he's not worth being in the top 6. Like I
So
put him
who comes
there.
out? Is it Manson himself? Because
No,
Manson's he's
I
up and
probably take
down.
I probably take Malinsky out of the lineup. Either Malinsky or EJ, one of those two. Pick your poison. Like EJ was signed to this team not to be an everyday defenseman, and he's going to play a few games, not every. Malinsky's been very good, but I do worry. I worry about a playoff series against the Dallas Stars, and having that body and both Sam on the back end. When Manson's back and healthy, he is a step in guy on your second pairing. And I think you play him right next to Ryan Lindgren, and you deal with a couple of times if they get beat through the middle, that you can have a really good net front presence, two guys that block shots, and you're not getting bullied around by guys like Jamie Benn and Mason Marchment and Mikko Rantanen being a 6'4", 215-pound player. He has to be in the lineup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gosh, I think maybe the last couple games, these last two losses to St. Louis and Calgary, Sam Malinsky hasn't been as impactful as he was the handful of games before that. And man, was he impactful. He looked really good, but that's still a younger player. So that's tough. That's a really tough decision. But I think we will see in the playoffs, we will see um, one night maybe Eric plays, and then depending on how it goes, then maybe Sam gets a look, and maybe there is a world because Josh Manson has been up and down. Maybe there's a world where Manson gets a night as a scratch in the playoffs. Again, just depending on how it goes. It's also maybe Ryan Lindgren, and who I think has played well overall. But man, it is great that Eric Johnson gives him that flexibility. Should one of the defensemen obviously get hurt, but also just not play up to par. And right now, I think Eric Johnson, I mean, not the type of minutes he was getting in his last run. I think he got like 15 minutes tonight, but man, he has been very effective for what he is. Eric Johnson has been very steady in his second Avs stint.
Yeah, and I think most of the Eric Johnson games you're going to see in the playoffs are going to be at home, so that you can pick and place where he goes and who he goes against. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
like against Dallas, you want to keep him away from Rupe Hintz. You want to keep him away from Jason Robertson. You want to keep him on the ice against Jamie Benz, and that's tough because a lot of those guys overlap. Like you want to put him alongside Dallas's fourth line. You want him on the ice when, like I, I know he's not playing for the team, but like how slow Ryan Suter was in the postseason. You want him on the ice when another D man is that slow on the opposite side, 80 feet away from him. Um, you're going to see him at home. Manson, dude, I think when he's healthy, I think Manson is 100% locked to be in there. You have to have that type of grit, that meanness, that net front bouncing presence. You got to have that there. It is too vital against a team like Dallas that you have to go through, and there's no way about going around Dallas. You have to go through them, and Manson
Mm-hmm.
goes through people.
And and back to the forwards in the bottom six, real quick in terms of assuming and hoping, but also logically forecasting based on evidence that Gabe Landeskog is back as your third line wing, forget, oh, this guy and that guy. I'm assuming Yoel Kiviranta will be good to go. So whether it's Kiviranta maybe taking Kelly's spot on the fourth line, or Bednar really likes that fourth line, and maybe Kiviranta is
He
your 10th.
loves he loves Kiviranta, man.
Oh,
I think if Kiwi's healthy, I think how's this? I'll put it this way: I think there's a greater chance that Josh Manson is a healthy scratch when healthy than Kiviranta is. Jared Bednar trusts Joel Kiviranta.
well, then you're going to have to scratch Parker Kelly, which if those are your next man up options, whether it's Parker Kelly or Yoel Kiviranta, that's good. That's the depth that the Avs have been looking for right there.
Yeah, you disappointed in tonight's loss. What's it make you feel like as we get out of here?
It makes me feel like we are headed towards Avs stars, and the Avs know it, and it's tough to treat that third period tonight like this was a must-show third period. They will have their look. Yes, you don't want to back into the playoffs. You don't want to go limping into the playoffs. And there's a very real scenario, as we talked about, where, those last two games for Colorado in LA and in Anaheim, it's a back-to-back. I mean, it's a Saturday, Sunday. Those games probably mean nothing. So, the game before that would be Vancouver on April 10th. Okay, maybe you treat that game. That's really the only one,
There's three
unless
games. There's three games I look at, Spring. I look
sure,
at St. Louis next Saturday.
a little bit of a revenge game there.
Revenge game against a hot team that still needs points. Home against Vegas on my birthday, Tuesday, April 8th.
Hopefully it goes better than my birthday.
Home against Vancouver on Thursday the 10th, which is if Vancouver might be the last team alive in the wild card race for the Western Conference. And I would love to see if you can win those three games against the hottest team in the league, a legit cup contender, and who might be the most desperate team in the league at that time to snuff out their playoff chances. I'd be happy. And then don't send anybody on the road trip. Just play anyone but your guys on those two games.
Yeah,
Play
I
me.
agree. I agree on those three games you singled out. I'll say that the top two of those for me would be St. Louis on Saturday, because if the Avs don't, take this somewhat seriously, there is an outside shot world. And now, granted, you got Chicago on Wednesday night. I know that the Blackhawks have beaten you twice this year, but you make that a 2-2 season series, okay? And those 2 points will go a long way in avoiding this nightmare scenario in which somehow, let's say the Blues, I think they got a couple games between now and Saturday. The Blues have won 11 in a row, and the Avs have pissed themselves a little bit. And now St. Louis is what? They could be 3 points back of Colorado.
Hold on. So in this scenario, Colorado loses to Chicago.
Yes, which is unlikely as all hell. Now, hey, if the Avs play, look, they've lost twice to Chicago. I don't think that happens. You're right. Go take care of business when it's on TNT. It's national TV. Show well. You should beat Chicago. Now, you beat Chicago, and the nightmare scenario is probably off the table. Okay? But either way, take care of St. Louis on Saturday, because, look, I don't believe in Minnesota. I'll get to them in a second. So take care of St. Louis on Saturday. The one team and the one scenario that can maybe have us saying, what the fuck, when this is all said and done. I highly doubt it, okay? I highly doubt it. So, yes, St. Louis on Saturday. The Vegas game, look, if they can beat St. Louis on Saturday and certainly Chicago on Wednesday, I think that all but seals their fate as the 3 seed. So the Vegas game can kind of kick rocks to me, in which case it would be the final game before the West Coast swing that you're probably resting everybody. That's the Vancouver game. You show well in that game. You leave it's your final home game. You leave a good taste in everyone's mouth. That's how you go into the playoffs right there. So I'm going to say St. Louis on Saturday, Vancouver in the home finale, and then you just assume and hope they take care of business against Chicago on Wednesday night.
I think it's going to be a I think it's going to be a little bit of a slump buster on Wednesday, for lack of a better term. I
It
think it could
should
get. I
be.
think it could get ugly on Wednesday. I think the Avs are looking at a couple of games where you haven't scored as much as you've wanted to. Nathan McKinnon is looking at Nikita Kucherov putting up 11 points in 3 games, and going where like don't touch my Art Ross. Don't do that. I know he's not going to say anything like that, but I think that's a game where like Nate goes 2-2-4 or 1-3-4 in that game, and he pretty much tries to lock up the Art Ross. The Avs get a huge win by 4 or 5 goals, and then you look at the gap between you and St. Louis, and you go, all right, we're fine. Here's the 3 seed. I think that's what happens. Um, I don't think there's a world in which Chicago wins that hockey game, man. It would be
Probably not.
catastrophic.
And the Avs are going to be pissed after this one, and they know Chicago's gotten them twice. That game will go a long way in really solidifying that 3 seed. And look, dude, all right. Let me tell you right now, actually, before we get out of here, why Calgary getting both points tonight maybe could end up actually being awesome. Okay,
Oh,
so St. Louis, look, there we saw the Kings, then we saw the Blues. I tell you what, man, the Blues are better than the Kings. The Blues are hot. The Blues are pretty good. I don't think the Blues are winning the cup, but I think the Blues are a dangerous team that whether you're Winnipeg or Vegas, you don't like that's the tougher first round matchup than the other wild card team that's going to come out of the West, okay? So I think St. Louis is getting that 7 seed.
I love where you're going with this.
I think St. Louis is getting the 7 seed, which means they're probably going to play Vegas. Okay. Minnesota's in a bad way right now.
Uh-huh.
They just lost twice to a Jack Hughesless Devils team. Did one of them on their home ice? They got no points. They did manage to get a point tonight in New Jersey. Minnesota's got a tough schedule down the stretch. At the Rangers, at the Islanders, both on the road. Home versus the Stars. They're home against San Jose, but then at Calgary, Friday, April 11th. The
That's a
Wild are at the Flames.
huge game.
Watch that game be gigantic, like you said, Raj. Watch Flames Wild on Friday, April 11th. That might be for the 8th seed. It's in Calgary. And the 2 points that Calgary picked up tonight are huge for them. And if they can beat Minnesota and then therefore keep Minnesota out of the playoffs and keep a possibly returning Kirill Kaprizov out of the playoffs, I would much rather have Calgary in this field than Minnesota, who if Kaprizov came back, who knows? There's a world where like that could end up hurting the Avs at some point.
I even think with Kaprizov, Minnesota doesn't scare me in a 7-game series. Calgary doesn't scare me in a 7-game series either. But I want the Blues locked into the 8th seed because I think it gives Winnipeg a heart attack. I don't think they beat Winnipeg, but I think it goes at least 6. And I think the Jets look back at that and go, God damn, this should have been an easy first round. Then they turn around, they snap their necks because they have Colorado buzzing down their throats after a 5-game series win against the Dallas Stars. Knock on your wood for that one. That's my early prediction for that series.
No, look, I would rather St. Louis play Winnipeg too because I think, like I've said, St. Louis is the more dangerous team, and the way the regular season is gone, I'd rather get Winnipeg out of there or at least tire them down more, which I think St. Louis can do. But don't look, Vegas. We're it feels like we haven't seen Vegas much this year.
They
but
are kind of going 0-30 right now with 98 points. They're underneath the water. They've got the eye black on. You have no idea where they are in their ghillie suits, and I don't fucking like that. I don't like that at all. I want to know exactly where the Vegas Golden Knights are right now, and they are in covert style operations. I don't like it at all. That's not good.
I know. I do. Vegas is still dangerous, and so St. Louis getting Vegas would still Like, and Winnipeg has, stolen the headlines, makes us feel like, oh, we'd rather see St. Louis against Winnipeg, but wouldn't be the worst thing if St. Louis played Vegas too, because Vegas, they give the Avs problems. They have for years. Mark Stone is one of those forwards that gives Nathan McKinnon problems. So I'll take St. Louis against Vegas, honestly, every bit as much as I would against Winnipeg as well.
All right, Spring. Let's get on out of here. Late Avs fall in the shootout to the Calgary Flames. Next time they'll be on late game, 7:30 puck drop. It's probably going to be closer because it's the late game on TNT to like a 7:52 puck drop local time against the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll be on the network broadcast for you guys there live from Ball Arena tomorrow. The great chase continues. 5 goals away from breaking 894 sits Alexander Ovechkin as he travels to Boston to take on the Bruins. The near 40-year-old winger has 37 goals on the season. Stays hot. Spring, does he get it done? Not tomorrow, but does he get it done before the regular season?
How many games are left for the Caps?
The Caps are 47, 17, and 9. What the heck are those numbers?
Actually, I can give you the games played right here. 73. So 9 more games, 5 goals in 9 games.
His
This
pace.
is this to
He's
tie or break? 5 goals
this
to tie or break.
5 goals to break, 4 goals to tie. He is on a .66 goals per game pace this year. His career average is .60.
I tell you what, man. Look, playing Boston tomorrow night. Now it's in Boston. Boston's lost 8 in a row. Boston is the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. They're just 1 point ahead of the Sabres, and we know how trash the Sabres have been this year. Granted, they're not Blackhawks or Sharks bad over in the West, or hell, even Nashville Predators bad. But how the mighty have fallen. The Boston Bruins, the fighting Casey Middlestats.
Yeah, they're just hoping to get James Hagens in the draft, man. Bring the Boston
Well,
College kid
dude,
home.
Ovi could get a hat trick tomorrow night. He really could. So I think he's at least tying by the end of the season. I do.
I've said for a while now that I don't think he's going to get it done. But he just keeps freaking scoring, and I don't know what it is. Is it just destiny? Is it just the greatest goal scorer of all time being the greatest goal scorer of all time?
It's exactly what it is. Because yeah, I did like to start the season in the first half of the season, midway through the season. I still didn't think he would do it. Certainly, in the early stages of this season,
Dude, if
I
he
didn't
didn't
think he'd
break
get
his
it done.
leg, this thing would have been done before the Four Nations.
Look at some of the games the Caps have down the stretch. Host the Blackhawks, 2 with the Blue Jackets, and the Blue Jackets are fun, but that team allows a ton of goals. Bro, oh my God. The Capitals season finale is in Pittsburgh. Now, maybe the Caps have nothing to play for in that game because they have fucking run away with not only their division,
They
with
might
not
run
only
away
the
with the
Metro
President's
division, but
Trophy.
the East. That game might mean nothing for the Caps, but if Ovi is on the precipice and you're playing Sid and the Penguins, I mean, that's ratings right there.
It's exactly what it is. I've said he's not going to get it done. I think Sunday, April 13, at home against Columbus is when it happens, which would suck because it's the Columbus Blue Jackets, and like, who really cares? Um, I hope he gets it done at home. If he doesn't get it done at home, it better happen either next season or in the final game against Sid and the Pens.
It's so much better if he does it this season. If we have to wait a whole off season and he does it like in the second game of the year on a Wednesday night when the NFL's in full swing, like no, it would
Yeah,
get overshadowed.
but at least next year, if you go into it, you can schedule like 10 straight home games and you can schedule the first 2 of the year. It's home on Wednesday night against Sid. It's home on Friday night against Sid. Then you play like a Saturday matinee because college football is, well, it's on, but maybe you play a Saturday matinee against Connor McDavid in the Edmonton Oilers, so you can bring in Gretzky's old team. And if you don't do it against the Oilers, you wait 3 more days, and on Tuesday, when there's no football, you have a Tuesday night game against the LA Kings or the New York Rangers. Pick another Wayne Gretzky former team and just have them come into the nation's capital. You could do that way.
I think he's getting it done this year. I do.
He is, man. He's just unstoppable. Russian machine don't
Oh,
break.
but I say this year, this season, because
Well,
this year
yeah.
would technically still be next season.
Oh no! Don't be that guy. Are you that guy? Like, oh, I'll see you next
I
year.
just wanted to be
When you leave
clear.
the office on like December 21st and you don't come back. See you next year. Shut the
See you
fuck
next
up.
year.
That's the worst guy in the office. No one likes that guy.
Yeah, I only make that as a lame ass joke when I have no other jokes in my barrel, in my
Kick you in the
holster.
nuts if you make that joke. Also, speaking of jokes, don't be the April 1st guy tomorrow. Don't be the April Fool's guy that tries to get me. Don't get got on Twitter. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want
I
to
don't
deal with that
appreciate the
tomorrow.
tweets because and I know too, now I'm smart enough, I'm wise enough to know that any weirdness that I see on social media on April 1st that it's probably false. I will say though, I got actually I'm not even going to say it. Listen to Kreckman and Lindahl tomorrow. That's all to start the show. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm excited for whatever it is, man. I can't wait
I've
until you
given it
message me.
away, but that it's not real, but there you go.
Do they know it's not real?
No, they well. I'm hoping Nate's back tomorrow because Nate was sick today. I hope he's back because it will involve Nate Kreckman, and I
All
want him
right.
to hear it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. on Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. All right, Spring. Avs lose. Talk to you guys on Wednesday night. For Spring, I'm Raj. This is Between the Pipes. Tune in tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on 92.5 for Brett Kane. 7 to 10 with Moshe Lombardi and Kane. 10 to noon with myself and Coach Mike Sanford for the morning sprint PhD from 12 to 3. And then do not miss it, 3 o'clock sharp. Mark Springer and Kreckman and Lindahl for an April Fool's Spectacular. And then the Nuggets take the court yet again against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see you guys Wednesday night. Later.